Well, he has earned his title of musical icon. It's hard to imagine what pop music would be today without my next guest. As the Beach Boys composer, arranger, and vocalist, Brian Wilson scored 9 consecutive gold albums, 24 top 40 hits, and an induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But perhaps equally remarkable is his resurgence as a solo artist after his decades-long absence from the music industry. In 2004, Brian Wilson earned critical and commercial success and a Grammy Award for Smile, his previously unfinished masterpiece that he began in 1966. And just last fall, he released Brian Wilson Reimagines Gershwin, a perfect marriage of one songwriting genius paying tribute to another. And right now, Brian Wilson joins me live in Studio Q. Hello, sir.
Hello, how are you?
What a pleasure it is to have you here. Thank you for this.
Thank you.
I mean, you're clearly engaged and energized by your career these days, releasing albums. You're about to tour across Canada. What's it like for you to perform live these days?
It's still a little bit scary for me. I get a little bit nervous before I go on stage, but then somebody rubs my shoulders, and I kind of relax, and then I go out and do my thing.
It really is scary sometimes?
Sometimes, yeah.
How come?
All entertainers go through pre-concert nerves, you know? It's a natural thing.
Do you have a particular ritual? Does somebody actually give you a massage?
Sure, various different members of my band do, and, you know, I say prayers and stuff like that.
And when you're on stage, what is the feeling for you? Is a lot of people talk about the best moment of the day as a performer being when you're in front of the crowd.
It has its high points. God Only Knows is one of the high points. Good Vibrations is one of the high points. California Girls is one of the high points, you know.
Oh, you enjoy playing the big hits?
Oh, yeah.
You don't. That doesn't bother you to have to play the songs that we've known for decades?
No.
All right. Well, on this tour, your set list will include some of those songs, the classics, but also songs from this latest record, Brian Wilson Reimagines Gershwin. You have a 2-record deal with Disney, but you asked to make this album first. Why is Gershwin so important to you?
Well, he's always been important to me. You know, ever since I was 3 years old. You know, I was presented his music when I was 3 years old, and later on, and when I was 28 years old, I went back and relearned how to play the pretty section of at Rhapsody in Blue.
Do you remember what it was that captured your imagination about Gershwin in the beginning?
Well, it was just the way he had made his violins have such pretty harmony. His harmony was very advanced and very original. He originated some harmony, and I learned from him.
Did you, and as a songwriter, were you captivated by Gershwin's melodies? Is that part of the, you talk about harmony, but
not just his melodies, but the way he presented his melodies, you know, like if he had like, do, 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 like, da, da, like that, you know?
Well, tell me what you just did there. Tell me what part of that you like.
Rhapsody in Blue, da, da, da. I learned how to go da, 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 you know, like that.
You feel like you actually, as a songwriter, were influenced by Gershwin?
Very much so, yeah.
And why did it feel like this was, at this point in your career, the time to pay tribute to him?
Because the Disney people came to us. They said, would you like to do an album of Brian Wilson sings Gershwin? And I said, absolutely. I was scared that if George came back to life and he heard these songs, he might not like them, you know.
You were worried that you wouldn't do justice to Gershwin.
Right. I wanted to make people understand how great he really was.
And how do you, so then when you know you're going to make that record, how do you go about, I mean, given the Gershwin catalog of songs, deciding what you're going to reimagine?
Well, they gave us 25 songs, you know, and we narrowed it down. It could take a couple of weeks, but we narrowed it down to 12. And just started with I Love You, Porgy.
I want to talk about the song Can't Take That Away From Me from this new album, Brian Wilson Reimagines Gershwin. That interpretation, reimagination as you might call it, is particularly reminiscent of a sound you've become identified with. You know, this sort of sprightly, ragged Beach Boys kind of Beach
You mean
Boys
the shuffle
kind of,
Beach Boy.
exactly. And the bop, you have a little,
Right.
there's a bridge section where you do bop
A little
vocals.
bit of Phil Spector, a little bit of Gershwin, a little bit of Wilson. Yeah.
Now, okay. Thank you. Perfectly said. So is that you consciously doing your style, or is that what naturally emanates from you when you approach a song?
Well, it depends on each song. Each song is different. If it's I love you, Porgy, it's I love you, Porgy, don't let him take me. You have to interpret each song the way George would have wanted it to be.
But when you do what you just called the Beach Boys shuffle, that sort of
Right.
helped me Rhonda kind of sound or California Girls that you did with that song, are you consciously recalling what you've done in the past, or is it just do you naturally go
I
there?
mean, actually, I'm drawn to that place because I know it's waiting for me. The shuffle. So like, I'll wait for a few minutes, and I'll get the notion, and I'll start playing. Yeah.
Right. And the other part of that, which is evidence there, and it's also evidence in the off the top, the intro song "Rhapsody in Blue," is the harmony, the 4-part harmony and vocals, which became a hallmark of what you do,
Right.
and still is at the forefront of recordings like that, where you get the opportunity. It seems like sometimes instead of using instruments, you'll use voices. Why? Where does that fascination with voice and harmony come from?
Well, partly from the Beach Boys that we used to harmonize, and partly from George Gershwin's arrangements. So we had to take each one, wound up with just four notes of harmony, instead of like 8 or 10 harmony.
Why have you always loved the voice so much as an instrument?
Well, because I grew up to voices. I grew up to voices: Chuck Berry, Rosemary Clooney, the Four Freshmen. You know.
Speaking of influences, I want to revisit some of the artists that have become part of your musical evolution that you've been talking about. The first is the Four Freshmen and the song Little Girl Blue. What goes through your mind when you hear that song?
Beautiful tune. I love it, man. I really do.
It sounds like a funny thing to say, but because I knew the Beach Boys before I ever heard of the Four Freshmen, who
Right.
I learned of through you, uh, it sounds like the Beach Boys to me, right?
Right.
It sounds like an early Beach Boys recording. It's quite remarkable. What did the Four Freshmen influence you to do as a songwriter, do you think?
Well, I learned to sing falsetto, right, from Bob Flanagan. And I wrote Surfer Girl only because of the Four Freshmen. If it wasn't for them, there would be no Surfer Girl.
Do you feel like you were so you were trying to be the Four Freshmen,
Right.
a group that had some modest success, but never the kind of success that the Beach Boys had? It's an interesting story, and here you are trying to be them.
Well, I don't know if I try to be them, but I think there's only one freshman living, and he still likes the Beach Boys. He told me he did.
I'm sure he does. You had very little formal musical training when you were growing up. How did you?
No. I'm self-taught. I taught myself.
Yeah, you had very little formal training.
No one taught me. I taught myself how to play piano.
How did you learn that? How did you learn to play piano?
Well, my Uncle Charlie, believe it or not, taught me how to play the boogie woogie. And from there, I just took off on extrapolations and extrapolated here and extrapolated there till I formulated somewhat of a style of writing.
Did the piano, like if you think back to when you first started playing the piano, when you first sat there, did it always feel like a comfortable, a natural place for you?
At a piano?
Yeah.
Yeah. I used to sit there with no shirt and just jeans on, no shirt, and just plunk away.
And the story is like you were in high school, and as much time as you could find, you would sit there and play the piano. That was
Right.
you just loved it.
Well, piano is a big chapter in my life, One of the bigger musical chapters of my life.
How much time do you spend now at the piano?
Half hour a day now.
Is that enough?
Yeah.
It's enough to quench your thirst for the piano. For many teenagers, back to that high school, making music would be an escape, right?
Right.
An emotional outlet or a way to avoid social situations or whatever. You had a tough family life growing up. What did music mean to you in those terms?
Well, music was my only salvation because my dad was nothing but mean to me, And so I walked around afraid that I was going to get spanked, because he beat me in the butt with a whip a lot of times,
Mm-hmm.
And so I was scared of him. And so I escaped to music.
And when you played music, he wouldn't beat you.
No, when I was playing music, he couldn't hurt me.
Wow. I want to talk about another influence of yours, a very different one this time, Johann Sebastian Bach, who you have mentioned. The piece, Jésus, Joy of Man's Desiring. Brian, I understand there's a direct connection between that piece by Bach and the Beach Boys song California Girls. What?
Well, the basic beat of Bach laid down the bump, 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 bump. He was the first to do the shuffle beat 300 years ago, okay? Now, how could that be possible? Somebody can originate that kind of stuff 300 years ago. But anyway, I listened to it when I was, in my teens, and it inspired California Girls.
That's amazing that that's what you extrapolated from that. Dum dum bum bum bum,
Right.
and then you did dum da dum da dum da dum
Right.
da dum da dum da dum. Oh, the East girl. I got it. Yeah, East Coast. Right. It's hard for people to make these connections necessarily between hearing the classical music and the kind of pop you make. Does it surprise you that that's where your influences were found?
It doesn't surprise me. It just anchors me. It makes me realize just how great those guys were, And I think we did a justice to Bach with California Girls, I think we did.
I'll say. You have trouble in one ear hearing,
I'm
right?
deaf in my right ear.
You're deaf in your right
and it's
ear.
the biggest rip-off of my entire life. I don't get to hear stereophonic hearing. It's like it's just one eye. You don't get to see the depth,
Of course.
So I got ripped off big time for a right ear, and I still don't understand why, but yeah.
Well, I mean, Beethoven composed while losing his hearing, so
Right.
you're not alone. But it's amazing that you've produced albums in stereo, despite the fact that you have one working ear. Do you imagine what it sounds like in stereo? How do you do
I try
that?
to imagine them, but I can't. There's no way to know because I just have. So the advantage of having one ear is you hear everything through one source, mono. You hear all, and that goes to your brain. So your brain hears one source of sound. The downside is you don't get to hear the depth and the beauty of the interior thing,
So when you're actually recording, do you hard pan the two sides so that you can hear what you've got going on in the different sides when you're doing something stereo?
Again, please.
When you're recording, so that you can, if you're hearing things mono through one ear, do you, when you listen back to the recording, do you pan hard to the right and then pan hard to the left to hear what's going on? I mean, how do you know what you're creating?
We don't pan. We pan to the left and right at the same time, and it goes into one of my ears.
Right.
But we don't pan all of it. We just pan some
I
of
got
it.
you. In 1996, you released the Pet Sounds Sessions, which includes the unedited recording sessions of tracks like Wouldn't It Be Nice? What was it like listening back to you directing stuff in the 60s from your
Well,
vantage point now?
it made me wish I was back then, young like I was back then,
Does it?
Yeah, it makes me want to go be 24 years old again. Yeah.
Why? What?
Well, because I was happier in hell when I was 24.
What? In those moments, you were at your happiest.
Right.
Would you have done anything differently?
I'd have slowed down. I wouldn't have produced so fast. I'd say, okay, guys, let's try this again. Instead of, all right, let's go,
Right. Oh, yeah, I mean, you sound very focused, like you knew what you wanted in those sessions, right?
Yes.
When you say you were happiest then, when you were 24, can you remember the pinnacle of that? Like, what was the happiest moment?
The happiest moment was the night we did the vocals to Good Vibrations. The guy said, Brian, you don't realize this. This is going to be a #1 record. I said, really, guys? Really? And they go, oh, yeah, man. So we kept working on the vocals and working on them. At about midnight, 12:30 at night, we finally had it done,
That's, I mean, Good Vibrations is, regularly called a pop symphonic masterpiece.
Pop symphony, yeah.
Pop symphony. You feel that way about it?
Yeah, it is. It's like a little pocket symphony, really.
Yeah.
It's got the choruses, the mid-verses, the verses, the mid-choruses, the fade tag, the cello and the theremin. It's got all the ingredients.
And when you hear that back,
Yeah.
you're the guy who created that. Does it kind of, does it blow you away? Do you listen back to it and go, how did I do that?
I sure do all the time. I hear it on the radio and I go, how in the heck could I have produced a record like that, Who the hell knows? Maybe God produced it through me,
Some painters have said that the hardest decision in making a work of art is knowing when to stop painting, right?
Right.
When you're in a studio recording a song, how do you know when to stop? How did you know take number 28 was the right one?
How did I know? Because I had good ears, and I followed all the way from 1 to 28, and I have a good left ear out for sound.
But you're a perfectionist, right?
Right.
So your inclination is probably just keep going.
Right.
Keep recording. So how do you stop yourself?
Well, you don't stop. You just you gradually come to a stop. It's not like, okay, guys, take 28, and this is going to be the take. Okay, guys? So make this the take. And they go, all right, Brian, all right, And we did it like that.
Do you remember writing Good Vibrations?
No.
No.
I don't remember writing it.
Do you think of do you have an approach when you write a pop song? What's something you do first?
Yeah, chords. I'm like a blong, 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 and then and I'll do a melody to the chords.
Melody always like the music before the lyrics?
Yes.
And it starts with chords, and then or do you have a melody in your head that you bring to the chords?
No, it starts with chords, then I come to a melody.
Interesting.
The chords inspire the melody, and the melody inspires the lyrics.
But that flies in the face of people so you're not one of these guys who be walking around like you're in a mall or you're walking down the street and the melody comes to you. You
Right.
actually have to be sitting there and playing chords first?
Right.
Before you go into a recording session, be it in 1966 or today when you do this Gershwin record, do you know what the song will sound like? Or is this something that you discover in the recording process?
No, I'm not able to hear it in my mind. No, I can't do that. I have to do it live at the studio. When I hear the instruments coming over the speakers, then I can hear it. Then I can go from there. I can mix. I can,
So there's that, like, I always think of that scene. Do you remember the movie Amadeus?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's sitting there. Mozart, he was dying, and he could hear every part of the symphony in his head at once, and so he was writing it. That doesn't happen with you?
No, not at all. No.
You go in and you like lay one thing down,
And then I listen, and then I hear it. Yeah.
Right. Gotcha. Let me ask you about some of the lyrics. The sun is a powerful symbol in many of your songs. Why is the sun such a central aspect for you?
Because it's California sunshine, It's automatic when I talk with old friends. The California girls and a beautiful coastline with warm, like that, influenced.
Sometimes you make some of my questions seem really dumb,
No, I'm just trying to help. Yeah.
Of course, it's the California sunshine. That makes sense. But I thought maybe there was something more. You've also said that many of your songs are about joy, love, and happiness.
Right.
You like the affirmative kind of, so the happy sort of song. Why is that?
Well, actually, some of my music was very sad.
Yeah.
Like Pet Sounds had a lot of sad songs.
Yeah.
But there's been more happy songs than sad songs by far. I mean, way more.
And why is that?
I'm not sure. I just it's just way more.
Do you think that's part of back to that escape? I mean, if you go back to being that music represented something really positive for you, is that part of it?
Not all music. Some of them, like Phil Spector's music represented positivity to me, and Chuck Berry. But there's a lot of artists that don't come on quite as strong, or are going to say knock someone's head off with their rhythm.
I want to come back to this latest record and your music. Let me ask you a bit about the break that you took in between recording and performing for a while. I mean, there were 2 long breaks in your music career, both due, as you've said, to your struggle with drug addiction and mental illness. In 1976, you did an interview with TV personality Mike Douglas. Let me play you a bit of this interview. Let's take a listen to this.
I say that drugs are not needed by a person of talent, that God blessed me with some talent. I never have utilized grass or any drugs or cocaine to actually, for a stepping stone to write or create music or create even a thought. I have been taught the difference by my psychiatrist, thank God, of a natural high and a drug high.
Are you off now of drugs?
Oh, I'm off cocaine, thank God. I mean, I did my dose of LSD. It shattered my mind, and I, came back, thank God, in I don't know how many pieces.
That's Brian Wilson in 1976 on the Mike Douglas Show after his first decade-long absence from the music industry. Brian, how do you feel now listening back to 34-year-old Brian Wilson on that national television interview answer those questions?
Well, it took me back a long ways in my life, you know. When I hear myself talking on the Mike Della show, I say, how did I know how to talk like that, you know? You know, when you're young, you can rattle off just off the top of your head, you know, like right off the top. You know, when you're a little bit older, it's like, you know?
That's funny. Even in talking, you hear music, right?
Yeah.
That's a very musical way of describing talking. You're saying there that you didn't take drugs to help you write songs, but you were certainly doing a lot of drugs when you were making some of your
Well,
boundary
when I
pushing.
took the LSD, you know, it was an 8-hour pill. It started at 7 in the evening, and by around 2:30 or 3 in the morning, I went to the piano and wrote some of California Girls. So the LSD did have an upside, you know, obviously helped me write songs.
So drugs can, I mean, Sonny Rollins was here not that long ago, the
Right.
great jazz saxophonist, talking about heroin use. And I said to him, I asked him, do you think it can help fuel creativity? And he said, I wouldn't recommend people do it, but yeah, it can help creativity. Would you say that drugs helped creativity in your case?
Very much so, yeah. Marijuana helped me write Pet Sounds.
And so, I mean, it's kind of a double-edged sword, right? Because on
Right.
the one hand, it helped you do what you did, and on the other hand, it led you to an absence in music for a long
Right,
time.
right.
It's a tough one to reconcile.
Well, that's how we did it with Smile. You know, we got stoned and we'd write little 30-second snippets, you know what I mean? Or 40, or sometimes a minute snippets, but hardly ever more than a minute, you know? And we sit there and we're going, where is this stuff? What's going on here? Let's junk it, Van Dyke. Let's junk it. You know, we put it on the shelf for 38 years.
Are you saying that drugs both helped the creativity of Smile, but also created the conditions where you couldn't release that record?
Right.
Amazing. That's what that was about.
Yes.
I want to talk about one last song from Pet Sounds, your classic record from 1966. This is maybe one of my favorite songs ever. I Just Wasn't Made for These Times. What do you think of when you listen back to that song?
It was like a making a social statement. I just wasn't made for these times. Like saying, either I'm too far ahead of my time, or I'm too not, you know, or not up to my time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I decided to just do a song about how I didn't feel like I fit into society. You know?
And did the meaning of those lyrics change as you've gotten older now?
No, they stay the same.
Do you still feel that way?
Yeah, a little bit. In some
now,
ways, not. No.
Now you weren't made for these times.
No, that was then. Okay.
Right.
Now is now. I do feel like I was made for these times.
You do.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you about that. You feel, I mean, you've had success in recent years with the release of Smile, Lucky Old Son, now Gershwin Reimagined. Do you feel like you've found the comfortable place? Do you feel like you are the Brian Wilson you want to be now?
Well, as soon as I did the Gershwin album and the Disney album, I thought so. Yeah, very much so. Smile and Lucky Old Son were, of course, great achievements. So Lucky Old Son was a great concept album.
Right.
Smile was a great concept album. But this Gershwin album, this Disney album, is just really far over the top. I mean, it's really something.
What do you feel you were able to express as a solo artist that you weren't able to express in the Beach Boys?
Well, not really much. It's just different orchestration. Each album's new. Like I don't think I made the Gershwin albums too Beach Boy, but there's a couple of things in there that like the Beach Boys.
Right.
I Got Plenty of Nothing is one of those that has a Beach Boy influence track.
You feel does it feel more liberating? Like you're not, you don't have to live up to some Beach Boys sound because now you're just Brian Wilson?
Well, no, I not live up to it, but be inspired by it, you know? Like, when I hear California Girls, it inspires me a lot, you know?
Why do you think the Beach Boys songs that you wrote back in the 60s and into the early 70s have endured the way they have? Why do they still connect
Because
with
they were
people?
fresh. They were cut fresh, and the vocals were timeless, you know what I mean? Like, in 200 years from now, you could play a Beach Boy record, or a Phil Spector record, or a Rolling Stones record, and it sounds just as fresh.
That's got to make you proud.
Yeah.
You say that the Long and Winding Road is one of your favorite songs.
Right.
Why?
Well, I thought the lyrics were very touching, and no, that's just the lyrics with the background arrangement. It was really, really, really well executed and done. And Paul McCartney's vocal was sensational.
What do you feel like, people, I mean, I guess you go and do these interviews and people like me read introductions about how you're an icon and a genius. And what do you feel like the Beach Boys legacy is in terms of what you and the Beach Boys have created for pop music?
Well, it depends on what song you mean. If you're talking Good Vibrations, we taught people how to use cellos. If it's Do It Again, we learned how to play a medium beat, like instead of pop 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 pop. Do It Again, it's more. It's automatic when I talk like that.
Don't Worry, Baby.
Don't Worry, Baby was a song full of love. It was full of love.
That's the most beautiful turnaround after the
Yeah.
first chorus, first into that vocal turnaround, and Don't Worry,
Right.
Baby.
That John Lennon wrote a song that had something to do with that. Like, I like the California Girl. I mean, Don't Worry, Baby.
Yeah. Do you, when people talk about the greatest bands ever and they talk about the Beatles and the Stones, do you feel like the Beach Boys don't get enough attention, or do?
Oh, on all these goodie stations, yeah.
No, but in general, do you think that the Beach Boys should be thought of as more than they are in terms of what you guys did when we talk about the best bands of
Which generation are you talking about?
any generation?
Like the young people?
Yeah.
Well, I don't think the young people are hip to the Beach Boys. I don't think so. People from their 40s to their 70s are hip to the Beach Boys.
You're going to be playing Massey Hall here in Toronto.
Right.
This is a stage where legendary songwriters tend to play. We just had Neil Young and Paul Simon play there. Do you see yourself as a contemporary of theirs? Do you put yourself alongside guys like that?
Yeah, but see, we're all so different from each other. It's hard to put yourself in the rank of somebody else,
Yeah.
I consider myself to be in the rank with Paul McCartney or Elton John,
Paul McCartney and Elton John, also very different from each other, but more of the pop songwriter.
Oh,
kind of
God, yes. I mean, Elton John, Don't Let the Sun Go Down. He was brilliant music person.
You like that song because it's got the word sun in it.
Right. There's sun again, like the old sun.
That's back to your California thing. That's your
Right.
whole thing. Yeah.
Right.
I thank you so much for being here, sir. It's been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure, and I'll see you again sometime.
Thank you. Oh, get the shake.
I'll see you at the concert.
Absolutely. I'll be there.
Give me a better handshake. All right. Okay.
That's Brian Wilson, legendary songwriter, arranger, producer, Beach Boys member, solo artist. His latest album is Brian Wilson Reimagines Gershwin. It is out on Disney's Pearl series, and Brian Wilson has been with me here live in Studio Q.